Europe has fired a $50 billion shot straight at the heart of Silicon Valley. On paper, it's about taxes. In reality, it's something far darker. This is the opening round of a digital Cold War, one where Europe challenges America's dominance, Washington threatens retaliation, and the casualties are not the corporations, but the people. Millions of ordinary Americans who may soon face higher bills, lost opportunities, and a future where the devices in their hands are no longer tools, but weapons in an economic war. Let's set the stage. $50 billion. That's the price tag Europe has slapped onto Apple and Google in one of the most aggressive regulatory moves in modern history. It's not a fine for one mistake. It isn't a penalty for some technical glitch. It's Europe telling Silicon Valley, your power has gone too far, and we're taking it back. For years, the European Union has accused US tech giants of dodging taxes, crushing competition, and exploiting user data. Brussels has said again and again, these companies operate everywhere, profit everywhere, yet pay almost nothing here. But this time, the EU is going further than ever before. Apple alone has faced battles over alleged sweetheart deals in Ireland, where it parked billions offshore. Google has been accused of abusing search dominance and steering consumers toward its own services. Meta, now Facebook, has been grilled over privacy and surveillance. Europe is tired of the excuses. And now, they're weaponizing regulation. To many Americans, this may sound like politics half a world away, but here's the shocking truth. These laws are designed to extract billions directly from American corporations. That money doesn't come out of thin air. It trickles down into higher prices for US consumers, fewer jobs, and tighter profit margins that ripple through Wall Street and retirement funds. Think about it. Apple sells iPhones across Europe. Google runs ads across the continent. Meta harvests data from European users. When regulators impose billions in new taxes, do you think these companies just swallow the loss? No, they pass it on, either through raised prices, reduced services, or cuts that affect their American workforce.
This is why Washington is furious. Former officials have called it overseas extortion. They argue Europe is targeting US companies precisely because they dominate the tech space and Europe's own champions can't compete. Instead of building their own Apple or Google, Europe is punishing America's. But here's where it gets even darker. This isn't just about money, it's about sovereignty. The European Union is sending a message. Silicon Valley may run the digital world, but we run Europe. For decades, the US has exported not just products, but platforms. iPhones, Gmail, Instagram, YouTube. These weren't just services, they became the infrastructure of modern life. Europe depended on them, and dependence always comes with resentment. So now, Europe is pushing back. They're writing laws that give them leverage, and they're testing just how far America will go to defend its digital empire. Consider this, the EU's Digital Markets Act and Digital Services Act are not small regulations. They give European regulators sweeping power to police tech companies, from forcing data sharing with competitors to banning self-preferential algorithms. In other words, Brussels is trying to dictate how US tech giants run their businesses worldwide. If it sticks, America's biggest companies will no longer be free to innovate on their own terms. But the conflict doesn't end in Brussels. The Trump administration, and now much of Washington, has already retaliated rhetorically. They've singled out Austria, Canada, France, Italy, Spain, Turkey, and the United Kingdom for imposing or planning digital taxes. They've threatened tariffs. They've warned of trade wars. And behind closed doors, officials talk openly about hitting back where it hurts most: Europe's luxury exports, its auto industry, its financial sector. So let's pause for a moment. What we're watching isn't just a squabble about tax bills. It's the early phase of something much larger, a tech-driven Cold War with Europe and America on opposite sides. The stakes? Enormous. The US tech sector employs millions, powers the stock market, and fuels pension funds. If profits are siphoned away into European coffers, it doesn't just bruise Silicon Valley. It bruises American investors, retirees, and consumers. And it sets a precedent. If Europe can take $50 billion, what stops it from demanding $100 billion next?
This is why markets are jittery. Every time regulators in Brussels announce a new measure, Wall Street flinches. Analysts warn that aggressive European rules could shave billions off US companies' valuations. That means smaller 401ks, weaker retirement savings, and less capital for innovation back home. But here's the irony. Europe insists these rules protect consumers. Yet stricter regulation often leads to fewer choices, higher costs, and slower innovation. If Apple pulls services, if Google limits features, if Meta restricts platforms, it's European users who suffer first. Still, Brussels appears willing to take that risk, because to them, the bigger prize is power. And Washington knows it. That's why this fight has become so explosive. Because the more Europe pushes, the more America views big tech not just as companies, but as national assets, economic weapons that must be defended. So here's the chilling reality. What started as a $50 billion tax battle could escalate to full-scale economic confrontation. And if that happens, the fallout won't stop at Apple's headquarters or Google's balance sheets. It will ripple into the lives of millions of ordinary Americans, in their jobs, in their bills, in the future of their digital world. And this is just the beginning, because the next phase isn't about taxes at all. It's about how Europe and America weaponize technology itself, from social media manipulation to artificial intelligence dominance. And the question is, can the world survive a digital Cold War without tearing itself apart? This is where the story turns even darker. Because once Europe crossed the line with $50 billion in taxes, it stopped being about revenue. It became about leverage. And what do you do with leverage? You use it. For Brussels, the digital taxes are a pressure point. They prove Europe can hit American tech giants where it hurts and force Washington to respond. But now the battlefield is expanding. Europe isn't stopping with Apple and Google. Facebook, Amazon, Microsoft, even TikTok's operations in Europe are in the crosshairs. The message is crystal clear. Comply with our rules or pay our price.
And Washington's counterpunch? Tariffs, threats, warnings. U.S. leaders have already floated targeting European exports, luxury goods, German cars, French wines. Imagine tariffs on BMW, Mercedes, or Louis Vuitton. That's not just economic pain, that's political chaos inside Europe. But here's the twist. Both sides are playing a dangerous game of chicken. If Europe pushes too hard, it risks isolating its own consumers from the world's most dominant platforms. If Washington retaliates too aggressively, it risks sparking a broader trade war, one that could drag in allies like Canada, Australia, and Japan. And lurking behind all of this is China. Yes, China. While Europe and America tear at each other, Beijing is quietly expanding its own digital empire. Huawei, Alibaba, Tencent, they're waiting, watching, moving into markets where US and EU cooperation is fractured. The digital Cold War may not stay transatlantic, it could become a three-way fight. Now let's break down what this means for ordinary Americans. First, higher prices. If Apple and Google absorb billions in European taxes, they'll pass costs downstream. That could mean pricier iPhones, more expensive ads for small businesses, higher subscription costs for apps and services. Everyday Americans will feel the pinch in their wallets. Second, jobs. Big tech employs millions across the United States, directly and indirectly. When profits shrink, hiring slows, projects get cut, offices close. That's not just theory. We've already seen layoffs ripple through the tech sector after downturns. Add a $50 billion European burden, and the cuts could deepen. Third, investments. Tech stocks are the backbone of U.S. markets. Retirement accounts, pensions, 401ks, all tied to Apple, Google, and Amazon. If European crackdowns keep hammering profits, Wall Street reacts, and ordinary savers, not just billionaires, watch their nest eggs shrink. But here's the bigger, more unsettling consequence: trust. Technology is supposed to connect the world, but when platforms are turned into weapons, when every app becomes a battlefield, people lose trust in the system itself. And once trust collapses, everything collapses.
Imagine a future where American apps look different in Europe than the US. Different rules, different features, different prices. Imagine a world where Washington tells tech firms to block European access in retaliation. Suddenly, the same device in your pocket becomes a political tool, controlled not by you, but by governments locked in conflict. That's the true danger of a digital Cold War. And make no mistake, this is escalation by design. Europe believes it's reclaiming sovereignty. Washington believes it's defending free markets. Neither side wants to back down, which means the collision course continues. So what happens next? Let's play out the scenarios. Scenario 1. Controlled confrontation. Europe enforces the $50 billion tax, US firms comply reluctantly, and Washington complains but stops short of all-out retaliation. That's the cold but stable path, but stability rarely lasts in geopolitics. Scenario 2. Open trade war. Washington slaps tariffs on European cars, wines, or financial services. Europe doubles down with more digital penalties. Suddenly, industries far beyond tech are bleeding. Ordinary Americans see higher costs on imports. Europeans see their exports dry up. Global markets plunge. Scenario 3. Multipolar fracture. While the US and EU fight, China steps in, offering cheap alternatives, investing in digital infrastructure, winning allies. Over time, the digital map of the world splits. An American internet, a European internet, a Chinese internet. Global connectivity, once the promise of the digital age, breaks into competing blocks. Now pause for a second. Think about the device in your hand right now. It's not just a phone, it's not just a laptop. It's a front line in a global power struggle. And the question is not whether this fight will touch your life, it already has. But here's the most haunting part. Once governments realize tech can be weaponized this way, taxes, regulations, tariffs, where does it stop? Today, it's about Apple and Google. Tomorrow, it could be about artificial intelligence, cloud computing, even social media speech. Every click, every search, every purchase could become ammunition in a larger war you never chose.
So where does this leave us? At a crossroads. Europe has shown it's willing to bleed consumers for sovereignty. Washington has shown it's willing to fight allies as if they were rivals. And China has shown it's ready to take advantage of every fracture. The digital Cold War has begun. Not with missiles, not with armies, but with fines, regulations, tariffs, and code. And unlike the Cold War of the past, this one doesn't play out in distant battlefields. It plays out in your pocket, in your wallet, in your daily life. So the next time you scroll through your phone, order something online, or stream a video, remember, you're not just using technology. You're standing in the middle of the most dangerous economic battlefield of our time. And the war has only just begun.